Moving on to immunity. Immunity is going to cover objectives 36 to 62. So if you want to take a look at your detailed student syllabus, that's where you will find information on what we're going to be covering in the topic of immunity. When you think about immunity and you look at this slide, normal protection is provided by three types of defenses. And so when you think about defenses, you can compare these defenses to a castle and to the castle wall, the moat, the soldiers, and the people. The first defense that we have as humans is our mucous membranes, the surface of our skin, the normal flora. All of those things, when you think about that being the moat, and that's like the first line of defense that we can use to help protect ourselves. And when those things get interrupted, that's when we're going to be looking at a disruption in our immunity. The second defense, you can look at being the castle wall, or if you're comparing it to a house, think about a house with an alarm system. In humans, this is going to be intact skin, intact mucous membranes, and those are going to be utilized to prevent dangerous changes in our internal environment. Sometimes our skin and mucous membranes do suffer damage, and they require repair, and so good hand washing, utilizing bandages, aseptic technique when we are doing Foley catheters, when we're doing dressing changes, those types of things can kind of make up the castle wall, so to speak. And then our last line of defense is very much comparable to the knights and soldiers. And so when you compare knights and soldiers to the human body, those are going to be our leukocytes, or white blood cells. And there's many different types of white blood cells, and we're going to spend some time talking about them and their importance. Our immune system has the capability of recognizing invaders and triggering protective responses so that foreign body, the trigger, the invasion doesn't occur and we don't get sick. As you take a look at this slide, you can see what the purpose of inflammation and immunity is. So it's really basically to prevent us from getting sick. This protection starts when actually we are fetuses and growing inside of our mothers, and then it will continue to grow over time, and our maximum immunity function occurs when we are in early to middle adulthood. And then obviously as we get older, those functions are going to start declining and we don't have as much protection as we need. When we are discussing inflammation and immunity, the thing you need to think about is that infection is usually accompanied by inflammation, but inflammation can occur without infection. So when you think about that statement, and you think about that blister you get on the back of your heel from your shoe rubbing and rubbing and rubbing, we obviously don't have infection in that blister, but we do have inflammation. There's a protective mechanism going on to protect our body from getting sick. And so then on the other hand, if you think about infection causes inflammation. So the infection causes something to swell, causes something to be red, causes it to look infected. And so those inflammatory responses are due to that infection. When you look at this slide, the purpose of this slide is to just kind of point out and correlate something with the immune system and with the trigger. So these outside little people, sorry, I moved the slide on you. These outside little people are our immune system. So the white blood cells, the leukocyte, the basophils, the eosinophils, macrophages, all those types of things. And this inside person is the foreign antigen, or the triggers. So when this antigen or trigger enters the body, the immune system realizes that that's not a self cell, and that alarms the body to get ready to attack the antigen. As that foreign antigen continues to invade the body, it causes an antigenic or allergic reaction, or it can cause the white blood cells to continue to produce to try to neutralize, eliminate, get rid of that trigger. The best case scenario when you're considering the immune system is that all of those responses have to be intact, so that organism first of all doesn't get into the body, because we know that we come in contact with hundreds of microorganisms, bacteria, throughout the day. And so if we keep our skin, mucous membranes, all of those things intact, then we decrease the risks of those entering our body. As this trigger is identified then inside of the body starts to produce antibodies that will surround and attack that foreign body. And then once this has happened the first time, then the body creates memory cells to quote unquote remember that antigen or remember that trigger or that infection in future exposures. So think about it as like the person that has chickenpox, and when we have that first case of chickenpox, we typically get pretty sick. We have lots of lesions and rashes and itching and all those kinds of things. However, if we were to get re-exposed to it, then the next time it may not occur. Best case scenario, we don't get it. Worst case scenario, maybe it comes in a minor form. Immune function is reduced due to many diseases. It can be reduced to injuries, medical procedures, but with reduced immunity, our patient's health is always going to be endangered. If a person is immunocompetent, that would mean that they have the maximum protection, and if they are immunocompromised, that would mean that they have that potential of getting sick because their immune system is not working. Another case is that our immune system overreacts and we produce too many antibodies or too many white blood cells, and with that we call that hyperactivity, and that's where we see like anaphylactic shock. We look at systemic lupus, and then also we can consider HIV to be a very big problem with our immune system. The proteins on the human cell, as you look at this slide, you can see that each cell is surrounded by a specific membrane, and it makes it difficult to have invasion. There are different proteins that protrude through the surface, and these proteins, these are what make each cell specific for that person. So if you think about those proteins, those make up basically like the cell's fingerprint. When you think about this, it's important when we're discussing immunity, because our immune system has to determine if cells are self or non-self cells, and that is what prevents us from destroying our own cells, and it's what's called self-tolerance. The immune system cells are the only cells that can do this, which makes it so important for us to have a healthy, intact immune system. So with this self versus non-self, when you kind of look at this picture, sort of reminds me of like when you go to Walmart and they scan that barcode to tell us, how much things cost. So with this immune system cell being the larger one down here in the corner, what our immune system cells do then is scan all these other cells that are going through the body and determine if it is a self cell, and if it is a self cell, then it's fine to dandy, goes on its merry way. And if it is determined that it's a non-self cell, then that's when our immune system will react and work to destroy that non-self cell. So human leukocyte antigens are found on the surface of most body cells. The unique proteins are utilized to help make us all different. The only time a person would have the same human leukocyte antigen, or HLA, the only time you would see someone else having the same HLA as another is when they are identical twins. But otherwise, we all have our own fingerprints, so to speak, on our own cells. The HLAs are normal, and they act to identify non-self cells. When the immune cells come in contact with other cells, that basically compares it to the HLA or fingerprint, and if they match, it's fine, and if they don't match, then the immune system takes action. So it works on destroying, eliminating, neutralizing all of those different things of that cell. So the thing that we need to discuss a little bit more in class is what causes our immune system to change. So what are the factors that make our immune system not as functional as it should be, that puts these people at risk? So the organization of the immune system is influenced by many different body systems. When you think about our immune system, it does, all cells start out as stem cells, and stem cells are pluripotent, which means that they can have more than one outcome. So the bone marrow produces stem cells, and these cells are undifferentiated. So that cell has not yet decided what path to take. So am I going to be a basophil, an eosinophil, a red blood cell? So we look at that, and the reason that we want white blood cells is because that is what we're going to utilize to protect our body from invasions. So when you look at the maturation of cells, you can see by this picture, and this is on page 305 in your ICHI book, you can see that it begins in the bone marrow, and then it is a stem cell, so it really hasn't decided what path it would like to take. How do you suppose it decides what path to take? Well, it's really dependent on what is going on in our body. So do we have an infection? Are we healthy and normal? Are we anemic? What is happening in our body to help that stem cell determine which path to take? So once that stem cell decides to become a leukocyte, we have to think about the many different jobs or functions of leukocytes. So we've talked that one is the recognition of self and non-self, and we did say that the immune system is the only body system that does that. It works to destroy the foreign invaders or triggers or antigens. It also works to clean up cellular debris after an invasion has occurred. So it works by mechanisms of phagocytosis. So macrophages and neutrophils are able to perform phagocytosis, and so that's the part where the immune system is going to work to clean up the debris and return the body to a healthy state. It also produces antibodies that will provide protection against direct invaders. It starts the complement activation, and so that is the start of antigen-antibody complex, where the body begins to produce antibodies to destroy that antigen. And then there's also the production of cytokinins that help stimulate the formation of leukocytes in the bone marrow. So with the production of cytokinins, this works specifically to increase the leukocyte activity, so it makes the white blood cells more effective. And then it also tells the bone marrow that, you know what, we need to have more of these cells take on the immune function. So inflammation is innate native immunity, which means it's natural immunity. It has natural protective features. So inflammation, think about just, as I said before, you can have inflammation without infection. So it's that blister, it's that protective feature. It cannot be developed or transferred from one person to another, and it's not an adaptive response to a specific exposure. It is a barrier that's going to help prevent organisms from entering the body, and inflammation is going to be discussed more with Lori when you get to the inflammation concept. So we're going to discuss the cell types that are involved in inflammation. So when you come to class, I'm going to have you pull this out, and we will discuss what the action of neutrophils are, what macrophages do, and I've already said that they're the ones that are responsible for ingestion of antigens. They help clean up the debris. Macrophages are typically very large in size so that it can engulf those other non-self cells. They work to repair, and they do help by increasing the ability of the immune system, because it does secrete the cytokinins that help control the immune system. So we will discuss that further in class. When you look at phagocytosis, there are 7 steps that have to occur in order for that non-self cell or that antigen to be eliminated, destroyed, however you want to look at it. And we will stop here with this presentation and then continue on with antibody-mediated immunity.